Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm your host, Nathaniel. I am so thrilled to be welcoming not only a fellow schooler and community co-creator, but also a friend, an inspiring musician, and also just an all-around good guy who is just one of those people you want to be around because he's got great energy. Jack Shiller, it's awesome to have you on the show. I'd love to just invite you to share more about who you are, why you do what you do, and let's get into the raw conversation you want to have.
Yay. Okay, I'm very excited and thank you, Nathaniel. I'm honored to participate in anything that you're doing.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, school is very interesting, and I'm sure many of the people who are watching this are pretty familiar with school already. But I guess for some context, for me, I had been not really doing anything conventional, and so when I was in high school, it was like, okay, I'll go to film school. Like that just made the most sense because I had been doing YouTube videos already. So then I was in college and I just wanted to make my own videos. And so I dropped out of college to build my YouTube channel.
Hmm.
Um, and I grew that to around 60,000 subscribers. But it was kind of just like the version of myself that was interested in like this very niche topic at the time. And I grew out of that. So I was ready to do the next thing.
And what was
And
the topic, Jack?
well, that was about like gaming and editing,
Cool.
actually.
Yep.
And it was interesting because it started to become like much more about a role of like teaching. Like that was the kind of content that did much better as opposed to like the editing sort of stuff. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. Then I had no idea how to like navigate that at all, and I was completely confused. And I had a lot of energy as well. So I was like trying to figure it out alone a lot of the time. So like it took me a couple years, but eventually I came around to school,
Hmm.
and that was where I started to just like connect with people and talk with people. And this was extremely uncomfortable for me because it involved like just going on calls, and that was just like terrifying. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, when I first met you, you had a community and you still have the community, but it's transformed. And this is one of the interesting things about school is like as you watch as people go through their transformations, they evolve what they're doing. You can change the name of a community. And so when I first met you, it was through a community collaboration effort where Sarah, who's running the school bus, organized an event where we participate in one another's communities. So it was yourself and Brandon and Mirtha, and we each had a role in presenting in another community. And your community at the time was called Confident Introverts, which I found that really interesting, and that juxtaposition of what so many people struggle with in the world, especially in entrepreneurship. Like if you are, say, really good at as a builder or a designer, maybe you're not so good at being in front, and if you're introverted and get your energy from going within, being around people can suck your energy. And so anyways, I found what you were doing is really interesting, and we had an opportunity to come together and do a concert. That's when I found out you were really an exceptional cellist, and you're an inspiring guy. And so one of the things I like about you is your willingness to be vulnerable and to really share your inner process in community. I feel like that's what creates trust and cohesion in a community. So I've learned that from you as well. So update us now, Jack. I know you're doing some collaborative efforts. You've changed the name of your community. Let us know what's going on with your
Yeah.
transformations, man.
Thank you. That compliment really meant a lot to me, Nathaniel, by the way. I really appreciate that.
It's true.
Um, yeah, so with confident introverts, I've been noticing in myself like, so let's just actually like, how does a community start? Like
Mm,
this is the interesting thing, and a lot of what I was struggling with was like a couple of things. It was like overthinking. Like I was like felt like I had to have so many things figured out before I could actually do something. Um, I was doing a lot of things like solo, so I was just posting and I didn't, but every time it was like I had so much energy, like so much stuff that I wanted to create, but I felt like bottled up. Like I didn't
Mm.
know if it was like the right thing. And then when I did turn on the camera, I was like choked up, even though I've literally been doing YouTube for over a decade. So like what's going on? Like this is very interesting. Um, and then so it was also going on calls and like meeting people. So like a mix of these things of like overthinking and fear. Um, so I was on a call with someone and she was like, yeah, just like type a name and like see if you like it, check out like what AI says and like just get a bunch of names. And I was like, that's so stupid. Like you should think about things and like, but I was in this mode of just like, I just need to iterate. Like I would learn so much faster if I just like tried something and iterated it. So I literally started the community like 5 minutes before a networking call and I just like went with it and I just like kept rolling. And with the calls, I noticed that after each one, I wanted to like meditate on it and like reflect and like process my emotions and everything. And I think that this is important. Um,
Hmm.
at the same time, I felt like I was staying inside of the same like mental loops. So I was like, what if I just like immersed myself so that I didn't, after every little thing, I didn't go back into my mind and processing and stuff, but like just had to be like, okay, now I have to be present again and again. So, um, yeah, so that was like how I started to like gather people to the community and I just like connected with people and was like booking calls and meeting people. Yeah, there's so many things that I want to touch on here, but so I'm like kind of discombobulated because there's
Oh,
so
that's a
much.
good word. I love that word. Discombobulate. Well, let's lean into the discombobulation, I'm exceptionally neurodivergent, so we can do a whole web spectrum of topics and then bring it back full circle. That always seems to happen in all of my expansive conversations. So, I can ask you, first of all, I just want to point out like it is a real skill set to have that level of introspection, to know about your inner process and to be willing to look at it. To me, self-honesty is another way I would describe that. The ability to really look at one's own process, to not identify as the process, but to really kind of be the observer and see what's going on internally. This is something that I feel like a lot of people maybe avoid doing because it does require, that space, that feeling of emotions, the processing you're talking about. And it also, creates an inner attention because you're literally exposing the inner conflicts within yourself. Like on one hand, you want to shine, you want to show up, you want to connect with people. On the other hand, it's very uncomfortable. And yet the reality is that's how we grow, right?
So
So
just real quick, because I love what you're saying, that is like precisely what you described is how confident introverts works. Like that describes it. Like it's a matter of balancing both worlds together. So
mhm,
confidence could even just be considered like the extroverted introvert. It's like it doesn't matter. Like
mhm.
we both need to understand how to connect with other people physically in this world where a lot of people are isolated. At the same time, we also need to understand how we can spend time alone and in silence, processing, not with the mind, but in like silence. So the problem is like that you end up just doing it. Yeah, so I think it's just the balance, basically. That's all.
Yeah,
I said.
yeah. And you know what? I think these are the two energies from my perspective, Jack, that are present in all of nature and all of creation. It's the yang and the yin, it's the willfulness, the shining, like I'm going to take action, and that's really perpetuated in most of the entrepreneurial frameworks, which I think has led to I have mixed feelings about calling it bro marketing because I think we need to return to a state of brotherly and sisterly love on our planet. So I have problems with that, but it's when I went to my first Tony Robbins event, it's like this grind. It's like you push through, it's like hyper masculine, right? Which is part of the drive of nature. If you see it, like there's this drive in nature, but then on the other side, there's the receiving, there's the feminine, there's the which is the magnetic. It's the processing. And a lot of people when they talk about like the law of attraction and the magnetism of life, which is the other half of that coin, it's the yin. What's interesting about the magnetic drive, what I find people don't talk a lot about, is that there is the attraction, but there's also the repulsion. And part of that processing you're describing, I feel like, is it's important to go within, to hear our own voice, to go into that stillness and to allow that to emerge because there's so many voices that would like to tell us what's right for us. But when you do have a more sensitive capacity for the energetics in space and stuff, it really is important to make room for
Mm.
hearing, that. And the stillness is the best way. That's my favorite form of what I would say meditation is just simply being in stillness and silence. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And I noticed in myself that I have this sort of tightness going on in my body when I feel like I have a lot. This was the other thing, is like I felt like there was something wrong with me
Mhm.
because, oh, I just must be like anxious, or like I just feel like scared of rejection or something. And I feel like it's like I'm just feeling a lot in a conversation, and there's a lot that I feel like expressing, or maybe like I don't know, because sometimes I feel like just listening, but um this like tightness that I felt in my body, um by not sharing it and just by like trying to not talk to people as much, I felt very constricted, and I didn't feel like I was creatively like expressing myself. Like it felt like it was getting very constrained. Like I couldn't open up about things. This affected my speech. It affected my what I was actually creating. Like I felt mentally creatively blocked as well because in conversations like I would be escaping. I don't know like what I'm trying to say. Like I feel like a lot of conversations I would be doing out of like this way of escaping the actual conversation. Like I wouldn't want to talk about myself at all. And then it was like this constant process of like, how do I redirect this back to the other person and not talk about myself? And that's okay to do. I think that is very important to do, but not if it's like coming from a place of fear. And when I was constantly doing that from a place of fear, it affected like the work that I was doing. Like I didn't feel like I was growing, and my creativity felt very blocked, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Makes total sense, man. I follow you, and I feel like a lot of people relate to you just sharing. And think this is also the power of your gift that I was talking about earlier. Is like the willingness to speak what most people would hold in quiet desperation and give voice to it. It's visibility and vulnerability, which is to me the two aspects of authenticity, and it does make you more um, trustworthy to people because people can relate to this. I can relate to it, man. For 20 years, I would, in whispers, in one-on-one whispers, talk about like my spiritual experiences with people, sharing the Christ letters, stuff like that. It took me a long time to get on into comfort where I can share some of my expansive perspectives, my questions, my ideas, and just be visible and vulnerable. And it still takes courage. It's not like a given. I mean, anyone could be listening to this and rejecting us in this moment. However, you know, that rejection is also it's another way of describing the magnetic drive, right? Because bonding and rejection is the feminine. If you think of a woman who, grows a child within her, she's nurturing that purpose. There's a bonding that's happening, that whole process, but she's also keeping that baby safe, right? There's a natural rejection. And in the ego drive, that can create tensions that can, create patterns if they're not given a voice and embraced in the way, it can create a pattern of a lifetime where someone stays in quiet desperation. So I really feel like your gift of being vulnerable enough to share, and I've seen many of your posts and expressions in community, and you are also highly creative. Like you allow your genius to flow, and I think it's because you've done this inner work that is so important. So it's not only is it a permission slip in others, Jack, it creates an environment of trust And I'm looking forward to having Matt Burns on the show because he has the Prove Worth community. I had a call with him and he was talking about how in all the community owners and members that he's interviewed, the common through line was trust and validation. This is what we need.
Yeah.
And there is a wound of community on our world. My friend Asha Hope, who's been on the show, we've talked about this on one-on-one. Is like, and this is part of this. This is part of the efforts of Lightheart Vision, is to build bridges with individuals like you, who are feeling called, like there's this tension rising, there's this need to express, and also there's this wound that I think we've all experienced, is the wound of the fears that come up, the rejections, the not being understood, the being caught in this rat race of life where we're just running from A to B and not making time for what you talked about, that going within that processing. It's scary, to start doing that. And so I really appreciate you bringing that level to school and to all the projects you're working on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. A couple of key things that you just talked about. I also noticed that you were bringing it back to the fundamental like energy dynamics of nature itself. I think that's very interesting because I actually think on a fundamental level that is asexual energy.
Yep.
And I think that this is ultimately ruling society, and I'm very interested in how this is like having an effect, like how people are working with that energy today. I think
Yeah.
is very um like yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's a great conversation. And that was actually one of the posts that I appreciate that you wrote about. Do you want to share more about your perspectives on that? And I'm happy to, like, we can do back and forth.
yeah, I do. And the I think there was one other thing there that you also touched on that I think it would be maybe I can give some context about like the development of the community because I think one of the things that I struggled with was like the conversations with the people that I already know and feeling like I can just talk about like the things that I'm working on felt what I would do is like I didn't want them to think that they couldn't trust me or something. So I didn't feel like I could open up about like the business that I was working on or even how I was going about it. Like even the fact that I was interested in trying to do that and I was learning about it on YouTube in the first place. So it's like I felt like I would be working hard alone, but then they would just see this very like unappealing figure in front of them because what would happen is like I would be very vague and abstract because I wouldn't want to like open up to them
Hmm.
about what I was working on. Um yeah, I was going somewhere with that.
It's okay. Your time, man. It's all connected, right?
Yeah. So
Why was it particularly the people that you knew that you had a harder time? Like you had a fear, like was it fear that they already had a perception of you and that you would make damage the relationship somehow?
yeah, I feel like there was this want to be proving myself to them and I didn't feel like if I was authentic to them and then they rejected me, then I might internalize that and then not believe in my own self to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things was like, and this is where I was going with it now, I remember. Um, I was trying to, I felt like a lot of questions are like around, have you figured things out yet? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, did you get it? And it's like I didn't feel like I could ever have like a good response to share that, oh yeah, like I made it now. It's like even if I did, like I've even had like mo a bunch of periods where I could have just flat out said that, like, yeah, I've done it. Like there were a couple of achievements where I was like, oh, now I can like tell my parents this and everything. But it's never enough. Even if you do have something, like it's not enough. And I was like, okay, I I constantly feel like this is a battle when I'm in conversations to like try to speak in such a way where like I'm finally coming off as like enough to my parents or to my siblings or whoever I'm talking to.
Mm.
So then I was like, what is this? This is silly. Like it's like these questions about if you figure things out yet or not. I was like, even when you achieve things, you still need to like do something. So I was like, if I'm ever coming across like I figured things out, then like I'm wrong. So I just stopped trying to act like I have things figured out. Because even if that was a thing, it's like what the process, and this is what I think we learn as like a school builder, is the feedback loops. Like nobody likes to join a community where you're just like joining their course and learning about all about them. It's like a good community has the marks of synergy, like you said, where members feel like they can participate and they can engage. And how do you do that? Is it by you being the chef who serves like them constant food and they never give anything back? No. It's through constant feedback loops where you give something and then they give you feedback and then you reiterate accordingly and you build collaboratively with them. But if you come across like you have everything figured out and you just need to teach people, then it's like you completely strip yourself of the whole collaborative point in the first place. And I think that is literally the purpose and meaning of life is to live in the present and build things like that. So yeah, I stopped like trying to like act like I have everything figured out when I was talking to like my parents and stuff. It's like, no, I have no idea what I'm doing. And like that's really the point. Like that is the point.
Yeah.
Like when Sam Ovens talks about school himself, he's like, I've seen him in these interviews and I'm like cringing because people are asking questions like, when are you, so like, how is this going to go? And he's like, dude, I don't know. Like the mission is big for a reason because it's supposed to be something we can work towards because I like building this product. So,
It's a great answer. And it's honest, and that I feel like so many of us are primed through educational institutionalization. And that doesn't just mean what we learn with our butts and chairs in school. I think it permeates through all society. This idea that, we're being like, if you think about it, like we go through this conveyor belt system where we're all graded at the end of each year. We're given reports, and basically the underlying message of all of it is you're preparing for something to do in the future, and we will tell you when to do that. And then so many people graduate these systems and then they go into like post-secondary education. And then the whole model changes is like, it's not about being told what to do. It's like you have to start to learn to think for yourself and, problem solve and iterate, which I think people would just be better, taking an entrepreneurial path and then just focus on helping people. But this idea that we're this not enoughness that permeates in so many people. I mean, this is such a common through line, and it literally, I think, is one of the wounds we have at the a very core level of our individuation of consciousness. Is a feeling of separation, right? And and there are solutions to it. I would say every master that's come to the planet has presented a different vantage, but it all points to the same center that connects us. And this is one of the things that I've loved from my experiences in indigenous circles and ceremonies, being around different elders and also my own direct experiences, that at the center of almost every indigenous ceremony that I've ever been in isn't people. It's something of elemental nature that represents our shared source of being. So whether it's fire, we all need fire, right? We have an inner fire. We need fire to be warm, to to for all kinds of things. It's our technology is literally the element of fire. Water, we need water. We have the water inside of us. We have the waters around us, around the world. They carry the memories. It's the lifeblood of Mother Earth. It could be, the plants, or the drum, which is the sound. That's the first sound, that heartbeat that we all hear in the mother's womb. We need sound. It's the frequency of vibrations, power in it, so all this to say, when we are on our journey of awakening and recognizing these patterns that we have, like the not enoughness, and then sharing them and having courage. Because one of the things I think we're often conditioned to believe is, that there are some people who are courageous and others who are not. And the courageous ones, they just do these amazing things. They build school, they build, rockets to Mars and all these things. And that they are just like these super powerful, like super people. And that's one thing I really love about Sam Evans is he's like you. He's very blatant in he's like, don't focus on future problems. I don't know. We're gonna figure this out. And I think I was listening to one school news. His like his mantra was "Go at it," like just
That
go
was
at it.
hilarious. That was
Yeah,
so good. That was
you
so
know.
good.
It's perfect, right? And I mean, if we
Dude,
were given that kind of foundation from a very young age and encouraged to contribute to society, not to go prepare for 20 years to contribute, but to contribute as soon as you can. Like I notice it in our daughter who's two. She's two in like 2 months, and she wants to contribute. She goes and gets the dust collector and the thing to sweep up the floor. She wants to help. She feeds us, like we're feeding her and she'll take. And yet I know if we were to put her in a standard educational institutionalization, she has a very strong will. She would probably have a lot of behavioral issues. She would be told to sit in her seat, not move, not do the thing, do what she's told, and she would either be broken or she would break the system. Like one of those things is going to happen. So, anyways, I think for me, a lot of those wounds that we deal with in community, like the thought leader versus the vulnerable co-creator, like a lot of the things that are exposed in communities, it shines a light on the greater wound that we have as humankind to reconcile with so that we can come together and synergize and really co-create a world that we truly desire to live in.
yeah.
So what has been your number one like shining light or you know reflection as a community builder and a collaborator in other communities?
Mm. Yeah, let me think about this or like sit with it for a second.
And then we can get back to the sex part, because I'm sure people are wondering.
Yeah. Well, I called it Confident Introverts, and then I I felt like I was really enjoying the community hosting part of it. And let's see, there's a lot to say about this, but I'm just gonna sum this up. Basically, it was called Confident Introverts, and I was building with people, and I felt like I wanted to t have a little bit more of the practical side of the conversation. And I was attracting such a variety of people. Like some were like doing business, others were not really interested and they just want to hang out. So I was like, okay, I have no idea what to do about this. And making it like a business sort of community doesn't, that's like what I'm interested in right now, but like, I don't want to like do that to the community. So when I joined forces with Tibor, I basically, for context, we started a partnership so that we it's called Focus Creators and we help those on school. I won't get into it, but it's a partnership. And I did that because it felt like the delivery that I was doing for any members of Confident Introverts was like a McDonald's version of like what he was doing. And I really liked what he was doing. So I was like, hey, your delivery is good. Like, let me help to like bring more people into this because so now we have like the delivery side and the attraction side going. So I had no idea what to do with the community in the meantime. So I experimented with a couple of names, but they didn't like light me on fire. So like with the it's like I honestly haven't really known like what to even do with it because it's not I think the community is great and it's ultimately like a focus on connecting with people at the end of the day and it's like I don't need to do that through the original community that I'm running now because we have like another community. So I don't even know like what we want to do with that now because it's like a personal side project at this point. It's not my main focus is in the Focus Creators one. So that's where I'm at with it.
Well, and that just is part of, I think, the natural evolution and iteration of an entrepreneur, and I think one of the beautiful things about community is, like, to me, the root words and etymology of community is communicating our unity. And it makes sense that without having a clear focus on who you're serving or how you're serving, that you would attract all kinds of people. And I think that however that organically unfolds, I think it's really great that there are some communities on school that are just these fun places that are not business oriented, that are just places where people can hang out, because there is this edge that school presents about monetizing community. Like if anyone if anyone has big vision, I know this. I've been obsessed with it for 20 years, thinking about world enlightenment, thinking about what that feels like, looks like, how is achievable. And I think it's a practical path. And I think it happens within each of us. Um, but I've seen some communities come and go that are so money focused that it's
Yeah.
hard to have real community when it's just money focused, unless that's the focus of the community. And nothing wrong with money. I think we'd serve ourselves very well if we loved money, um, and what it can be as an expression for humankind. However, in the current iteration of it, it certainly uh, is not always used to the benefit of humankind. As soon as we have profits over people, I think we run into issues. Just like profits in the biblical sense, when we have some individuals above others, we have problems. And just like in the sense with community, if the like you said, if the community owner is coming in as the bearer of all knowledge and wisdom, and everyone else feels like an underling, well, it's not really a community, it's more of a cult, you know? So so what do you so I mean, it's up to you, Jack, where you like to focus now. Do you want to talk about partnership and like what you're doing with like focus creators, and what that journey is like, or would you like to go back to the elemental aspect of creativity and the essential energy that is behind all of life?
Yeah. So I'm actually interested in what you were talking about because you were saying about this fasting experience.
Oh yeah.
So I wanna understand that. And so you said you did it in college a little bit. I
Mhm.
want to first understand like what made you do that in college, and then what happened after it. Like, did it become like a frequent sort of part of your
Sure.
experience? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to share. And I guess for context, because we were talking offline before. So yeah, I've recently embraced fasting more. I've in the past, how I've done fasting has been in a traditional setting, overseen by an elder. It's a dry fast, so no food, no water for a number of days that usually are given ahead from a spiritual insight perspective. And so in those cases, my first fast that I did was on the land where I had to go and find. I was given direction from the elder to go and build my lodge out of purely dead limbs, and I had a tarp and stuff, and I created this lean-to, and basically I was in there for 2 days, 2 nights, and he would come check on me in the morning. And when you're doing that kind of fasting, it really is like a vision quest, and you set up your safe space with nesima or tobacco. You put your prayers, you create a prayer tie. There's protocols to it. There's a sacred fire that is being overseen by the lodge holder while you're doing it, to pray for you, to, if you're, and they can feel what you're feeling in the lodge. There's that level of kind of relationship. So when I first did it, like a lot of like anger and stuff comes up. I mean, when you're not used to dealing with hunger, and also you feel this passion of just really wanting to know the truth of existence and really wanting to wake up, there's that edge that I found, especially in the outset of my journey. And like you, I didn't know what I was doing. I was literally following the divine breadcrumbs, and in many ways still am. And but I feel like clarity happens over time as we cleanse our consciousness of beliefs that need to be healed, that are out of alignment with truth. And that's a personal journey, that isn't for the faint of heart, but it's something that we can all undertake and in our own ways. So that was my first exposure to fasting. That would have been about, well, like maybe 17 years ago. Um, and then I did a few other fasts on the land in similar ways. The longest one I did was 4 days, 4 nights. And it's interesting every time you do them, very different. There's usually a sweat lodge before and after as well, which is a whole other ceremonial practice that I've had a lot of experience in and fire keeping and things like that. And um, a lot of the time in fasting in those situations, you're in dream world. You spend a lot of time. You have your drum, some of your medicines there for smudging, um, you know, and animals present themselves to you.
So wait, so where were you living real quick? Like,
Oh,
how did you do that? Like, because this
yeah.
was college age, right?
Yeah. So that was in North Bay, Ontario. And that was bordering Nipissing First Nation. So primarily, most of the teachings I've received have been Anishinaabe teachings, which is, other many people refer to it as Ojibwe. So the elder at the time, it was guiding me was, that's the way that was his nation and culture.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I was living in an apartment, but then, for that
Okay.
period of time, I was just taken to a spot in nature where it was safe for me to camp out for overnight.
Oh
And
wait, okay. So interesting. What were you going through? Like, because there's college, there's high school, like you were you mentioned like the hunger for just like what the like I'm here, God. Like,
mm.
why? What do you want me to do? Like I'm here, I'm happy to do it. And then it's like so this edge of like implosion. I I'm really curious, like, did you have aspirations? Like what were you did you have ideas of like what you wanted to do and you just didn't know how to do it or like you had no clarity at all? Like
Mm.
I'm
Great,
so curious.
great questions. I so I think many young men, including myself, have aspirations and beliefs, and I was a highly intellectual young man. I had a lot of things come up in school for me at a young age. Like I had my first year of high school in grade seven, and it was a culture shock too because my parents moved us from Alberta, which was very like average. Like I was in a middle school. I didn't like school very much. I would avoid homework and stuff. I think I was very sensitive, a young man, very inspired, also very creative. I love arts and things from a young age. And then I was put into the Quebec system. So I went from French immersion to straight French. And I went from a middle school of a school of 300 into a first year high school of a school of 1600. And it was shocking for me. And there was a lot of 16-year-olds in my class, and I was 13. I actually got a band of white hair in that time and was put into a position of failure a few times. I was really challenged mathematically to expand my mind because I became very advanced in teaching myself math because they were so much ahead of the curve because they only went to grade 11. And in French, I almost failed. I had a 59 and I bumped it up to a 61. And little did I know, like there was like a quarter of the class that had failed that course that year. Because you need a 60 to pass in Quebec in classes. So it really made me mature very quickly. And when it came time for my, you know, when I went back to Ontario, my parents moved there after that year because it was just not a good environment for a number of reasons, the Quebec societal structure. We found I went back to primary school. So I didn't even go back to a middle school. I went to grade seven or was it, yeah, grade eight in a primary school. So it was like being around a bunch of kids, and I was like this mature, almost like a man
Interesting.
in my thinking. And school became very easy to me after that. And so, but I was fear driven in education and I would memorize textbooks. I had this ability to hyper focus and literally memorize entire textbooks. And became very good at tests based on my psychological evaluation of the teachers. So because most testing I found was deceptive in nature, especially multiple choice testing. So I would literally kind of, attune to the teacher and like, how are they trying to see what kind of person are they? Are they like a mildly, are they one of those teachers who want us all to pass,
Yeah.
or are they trying to screw us over? So I would know what to answer based on
That's
that. I became
hilarious.
very good at testing, and I would give like rote, like word for word answers when they were long form based from the things. And I did that all through high school. And I was also an interconnector. Like I always found individuals really fascinating. And so I would like make friends with the more like um I don't know, like the preppy kids who were like involved in the school stuff. And and I would make friends with the punks, and I would make friends with, and I would bring different groups together, and I always loved bringing people together and having kind of like these interesting conversations. I was always a conversationalist. I love exploring consciousness, and I was philosophizing at a young age. And when we moved to Ontario, we moved from a small town to the country. So I started spending a lot of time in nature, a lot of time by myself. And because we were so far away from my friends and I didn't have access, like I wasn't in sports, my parents were not really desiring to drive us to places. And I was about 20-minute drive from like the town that was the school. So it was a long bus ride. And if I wanted to go see my friends, I would literally have to bike about 4.5 hours to go see that town up these hills and the Muskokas and stuff. So I had this really weird kind of experience of connecting to nature in a different way. I would spend a lot of time just outdoors, like cleaning up land, like in the middle of the forest. I'd like gather sticks and stuff. And as I was doing this, I was contemplating because I always wanted to know the truth of existence. But I wasn't doing it from a spiritual lens. I was doing it very much from a scientific lens and from a quantum physics lens and from contemplating the nature of light and mathematically contemplating like space and like paradoxes. Like Zeno's paradox was a very important part of my awakening. It's like if in time, between one object and the other, in half the time I move here, in another half of the time I move halfway, another half the time I move halfway. There's this hockey stick that I never really touch surfaces. So it was a deep contemplation of the nature of space. And so I realized nothing touches, there's space between everything. And of course, we know this scientifically, but spiritually, it's a very important realization when you realize nothing is solid and everything's vibrating particle and energies. And I started having also to um, experiences that were part of an awakening, which were hard for me to describe. Like I could see in refracted light in my eyelids, these circular, concentric circles, and I could see fields of them the more that I would relax. And I feel like we all can see these things. I was calling them hydrogen atoms at the time. I'm like, I can see hydrogen atoms in like in the virtual space in my eyes all around me. And I was trying to convince people. I was doing a lot of writing and writing books because I was also very anxious about the state of the world. And I believed that we have to save the world. And I always felt this pressure as a little boy. I would see how we were treating the land and stuff. And I felt like this calling, like I'm here to help this world somehow. And so I became very obsessed with that. And what drove me to Indigenous wellness and that fasting experience was one day I was contemplating patterns. I was very interested in like how, like humans, like we have a trunk and we have limbs and we have branches, and why do we have 5 fingers, and why is our geometry this way, and why is everything the way it is? And I was just asking all these questions, and I noticed the similar patterns in like leaves and branches and roots. And I was contemplating the patterns in a leaf one day, and I looked up and I said, I bet you no one's ever even counted the leaves on one tree. And that just like opened my mind of just the abundance around me, like so evident in nature. The mind becomes confused when it's surrounded by so much abundance. And I'm like, you know, one seed made this tree that has innumerable leaves, and that tree is going to make innumerable seeds. And like the contemplation of abundance, like expanded my mind. And I was inspired with this question. It's like, what would our world look like if we were all truly loving what we do and not put through these, grinds and institutions, and we were having access to the abundance that clearly is here, and we recognized it, and we shared it, and we came back into harmony and unity with one another, realizing like there's more than enough for everyone. Like it's inconceivable how much there is. Because poverty really bothered me, and I was exposed to the deep anxiety and concern about not having enough money, especially with my parents because they went through the recession in Alberta, and it was exceptionally poignant in Alberta in the 80s because uh, the oil being the main economy source in Alberta, when it booms and busts, which it has a tendency to do, a lot of young men who come from other provinces just leave, and Calgary literally became a ghost town. And my dad is a cabinet maker, basically making minimum wage as a cabinet maker with all the overhead costs that cost to run a shop, to sharpen your blades and everything. There's a lot of cost to being a cabinet maker, and a lot of things happened that really stressed my parents, and I could feel it. I grew up in a home with a lot of financial anxiety. And I've come to peace with this now. I realize that part of my purpose here is to help with this problem because I feel like abundance literally is one of the most profound teachings that my very great friend and brother, whether you call him Jesus or Yeshua, that's a big part of what he taught. And after I was inspired by that question, even though I was not religious and I had some spiritual experiences before that experience that caused me deep contemplation, um, his being appeared to me as pure light in the forest right after that question. And as you can imagine, for a scientifically minded young man who is much more philosophical than anything, that really challenged me because I was like, what the heck is possible for us if this being is appearing to me as pure light, like, and he is on such a transcendent level of consciousness, and all I feel from him is pure equality and brotherly love, and that key love, like that's all I felt. And it was a very difficult to describe experience. However, he never left me after, and I just felt guided. That's when what guided me to do indigenous wellness, to do this. But I became also obsessed with world enlightenment, which now through Light Heart Vision we call home, heaven on Mother Earth. And like, what is that? How do we achieve it? What is the path there? And what's my contribution to it? Because like you, I don't have all the answers. And I've seen some other miracles. I don't want to make all this conversation about me, but what I've realized too, the fasting, like he fasted in the desert after his enlightenment, he was just guided to do like 6 week fast. And I've done it more gently. Like I've started with cleanses, as I was telling you, like doing a master's cleanse with lemonades. Because to me, fasting was something you did ceremonially, and now I'm just finding like I'm around whether it's the new moon or the full moon, I just like to fast around those days and just give my body a sense of time to do clarity. What I find is it helps me really stay more connected. It gives me a more, like you were talking earlier in the conversation, it gives me more of an awareness of those feelings, whether it's that tension or anxiety, or it's like, and allows me to process those things because I have different tools that I use to
Mm.
embrace these things. So that in a nutshell is what's led me, because really my ultimate goal, and I feel like for all souls, like I believe we are the soulful self. I believe that's all we're really doing is awakening. And there's no wrong way of doing it. I was just reading this actually in Living in the Light by Shakti Gawain, which I never read before, but it was given to me in our travels outline. And her teacher told her, "There's no wrong way, there's the long way." And so I feel like there's ways of speeding up our awakening, and it sounds like maybe some people who haven't really put a lot of focus on this sounds like maybe a weird thing, but to me, it's just being more and more of who we are. And just to bring it back to you, Jack, because I want, and I hear from your reflections here, and I know I've spoken and shared a lot. I I've been thinking a lot about this, this idea of confidence, because I'm facing it like with as myself as an entrepreneur, getting on calls with people and making offers as I'm shifting some of this perspective change, and like it's important for me to be of service. You know, confidence, I feel like is just being more and more of who we are and showing up authentically. It doesn't feel like this, I'm confident and I know. It actually could be like, yeah, I really don't know, but I believe in something greater than me and maybe all of us. And I know that this is important. Like there's a purpose here. And to me, it's about faith. And it's just about showing up and just being yourself and being playful and being fun. Because if we are going to co-create a world that is enlightened, it's got to be a lot of fucking fun. It has to
Yeah,
be. Otherwise, no one's going to want to participate, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I also think it's really funny that like the clarity that I feel in a conversation, if I'm talking about something that I feel very like interested in, like when I was talking about like my school communities, like I love talking about that stuff. Like I'm like I really like getting really practical and talking about how to work with community and um build a following, a platform, a community online. But like with our conversation, like I noticed that I didn't have a lot of clarity in that sort of um vein of discussion. I I may other times, like if I'm recording a video about it or talking with someone who's maybe starting out, like I love having those conversations, but it's like, okay, if this is like a really hard thing for me to try to like make a discussion about, I can either try to force it, but like that kind of leads to a lot of abstract conceptual, where am I and how do I make this land? And then that's where I would like want to beat myself up for having bad speaking skills when in reality it's like, dude, you're you're not stupid. You just are trying to do something that is not what you want to do right now. And I was talking about this with my mom recently because she was beating herself up for like not having a good consultation call with her client. And I was like, Mom, you're extremely sensitive. Like, I really think you should not beat yourself up at all for that because I think the problem was like you deep down in your body, you did not like the work. I heard about like the work and like what he was doing. I was like, you deep down don't really care about this work and want to help this project. And like, that is okay. Like, so when we were talking about some of the other subjects, like, I noticed that it was so much more like, I felt so much more clarity as to like how to what to say or what to ask. And I think that's key and exactly what you were talking about with the confidence, because confidence, exactly like you just said, is much more of a side effect um, of just being interested in the thing that you're talking about, uh, like feeling it. And then I was curious as well about this. So with that subject, some of the feelings that come up for me are because like I've had some experience with the fasting as well, and sometimes it felt like I had to um there've definitely been times where I was just like I do like this sucks, like I hate this.
For
And
sure. Yeah.
um so I felt like angry and I
Mhm.
felt so it was a mixture. The feelings that I felt was like fear, guilt, and resentment.
Mhm.
I would feel fear of having to do it again. I would feel guilty if I ate, then after and transitioned back into just like eating again. I was like, oh, I'm such a piece of shit. Like, why am I doing this? Like, I should be an enlightened person.
Mhm.
Why? And then I would feel resentment because I would
Mhm.
feel like um other people are like fine. Like, why am I like I feel so stressed out and it's like I can't just like enjoy like why is everything felt like so like
Mhm.
burdening and stressful? Um Now, other times it feels like it's on my initiative and it's like, okay, like I feel like doing this. So I was wondering if you've had any of that sort of experience because like
Mhm.
it can honestly be like an uncomfortable conversation for me to even have because a lot of those feelings can come up and then I
Mhm.
can feel like quite bad about myself
Mhm.
for the way that I feel like I navigate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I again, I really appreciate your willingness to go into that, and it absolutely is a part of the process. And to me, these are expressions of the ego drive, which are our shared human experience. Like if I were to pretend that I didn't experience any of those things and like it's all hunky dory, like I would be totally delusional, and I would run away if I were you. Like to me. But however, what I've learned is there are not only tools, but we have access to a mastermind and a resource that can help us to let go of some of these things. Because if they're coming up, it means that they're within us, right? Like if anger is coming up, or resentment, or criticism, judgment, all these lower, uncomfortable emotions are a part of our egoic structure, and literally, in a lot of ways, protect us from things, right? I mean, our ego wants us to survive. It wants us to stay safe. It wants us to, it also gives us the impulse to do the things. Like the ego is a beautiful vehicle for expression and experience of being human, and the individual, experience that
Well,
we
it's like
have.
the perfect friction for awakening. Like it is
Yes.
literally the symmetrically perfect backboard for transcendence. Like you cannot have it be any more perfectly suck, perfectly painful.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. And give us the vulnerable connections with other humans that are having the same thing. I want to, we had Honey uh, on our show yesterday. Julia interviewed her, and I wasn't able to there. I was with our daughter, and our daughter has started to have tantrums now. She's 2 in a couple months, and it's interesting because what I did yesterday, I had this phenomenal experience with Luciana, and she has an extremely strong will. She has a stronger will than both Julia and myself. She is a very determined soul. She is she literally starts like she started to correct our language now, and if I tell her, yeah, this is happening, she's like, it is not happening, and she gets very, and so she started having these tantrums where she literally goes into such rage, and like she's also very strong because she's been one of those wiry kids who's always pushing off you, like this constant, like she has super strong legs. I wouldn't be surprised if she's going to be an athlete of some kind. But anyways, I'll get to the point. So while Julie was on the show, she started having a tantrum. So brought her up to her room where she's safe, and I just sat on the door so she couldn't open it. She tried to push me the whole time, and like not like hitting me or anything, just like, she's still very sensitive and aware, but she was, screaming, and like I had to cover my ears sometimes because I'm very sensitive to sound. And going through this, and I stayed calm within myself. And I've learned that, this idea of co-regulation, like staying calm, and I talked to her calmly, and I sang songs, and, I just was present. I was a calm presence for her to eventually regulate back to her. It took about a half an hour of like running, like, just, and anyways, all that to say is she eventually calmed herself without her need for the breast milk and all this stuff. And then she came back to her regular, her more normal self, I would say, for lack of better words. And she just came and she gave me this really big hug of pure gratitude. And I could feel her. She was just so grateful that I held space for her in a calm way. And allowed her to feel what she was feeling. I didn't try to distract her. I asked her, "Do you want to read a book? Do you want water?" And she was just so in the feeling, and I just held the space for her. And then, yeah, there was that beautiful moment after, and it brought me to tears too. And I was just telling her how much I loved her and how much grateful and how proud I was of her to see her do that. And then we had some beautiful moments after that. And then she got to have this like warm embrace with her mom back. And then I got to listen to the end of the show, and that's why I'm going to bring this up because I'm going to ask you the same thing. So you're going to get an advantage. You can think about it. But Julia asked Honey, what is your higher vision of our world? And Honey said, imagine, go within and imagine your mother and the highest evolved expression of her. And Julia said it almost brought her to tears, right? And then she said, imagine your father and the highest evolved expression of him. And she is all about being the parent to our inner self. Like we become the parent and we have an inner reflection of the parent. And I really believe in this. And it also, to me, is a doorway to the parenting impulses that bring us back to the conversation of sexual energy. Because we are born from an act of love to some degree or not, and from everything from like the things I don't want to talk about in terms of the sexual act that people go through, but also through like, the party. Oh, we had sex at at the bar and we just knew each other, to when two people are truly in unconditional love and want to have a family and it's conscious conception and all that. And we're born in some way, and we grow miraculously from one seed and one egg into this division of cells that becomes a trillionaire of cells. Like we're literally walking around as trillionaires that are these symbiotic beings connected to our environments with all kinds of um, DNA structure that's not even human, like bacterial and all kinds of things. Like we are an amazing creature, and we're born miracles. So um, that sexual energy of the father and the mother, the the seed and the egg, the act, the will, the willfulness, the that aroused state, like I hear that ambition to the receptivity of the magnetic, the receiving. It's interesting from a Taoist perspective. Um, I think you'll find this interesting. Mantak Chia, I read this years ago, from the Taoist, one of the Taoist perspectives is that the reasons we have so many conflicts in our world is because of the imbalance of the masculine and the feminine drive.
Yeah,
And because the man does not learn how to control his impulse and also to um, cultivate his essence and learns that every time he has an orgasm, he must ejaculate, that energy that could potentially rise and transmute into higher levels of creative energy are spilled into essentially an endless void of potential that can never be fulfilled by that energy. The yang can never fill the yin energy. And so because he feels on a subtle level energetically inferior to the divine feminine or the feminine energy, he will seek to dominate and suppress physically because he is capable of doing that, the woman. And Mantak had brought up that, this microcosm that happens in relationships is witnessable in all wars and all things, right? It's funny,
exactly.
like John Lennon said, happiness is a warm gun, right? A penis is a warm gun. And this idea that we create guns and things to kill one another, like I feel is a representation of this imbalance. So we're in a time, and what Christ talks about in the letters, where when we create harmony and union between the masculine and feminine um, expressions of divine consciousness within ourselves, then we return to coherence, which is what we can talk about a lot in scientific nomenclature nowadays. But for indigenous people, especially the Anishinaabe, they talk about it as the red road. They say it's the longest road we go through. Between the heart and the mind is the longest journey that we undertake. So those bringing together of those father and mother. And so I thought that was a really interesting way of answering that question because most people have an answer, but she asked a question. She asked, can we envision together a world? And can we imagine so that ego that you were talking about, like when we're because this is what allows us to connect with one another too, because we realize like life is not easy. We all have these similar things like resentment and anger and animosity and jealousy, and we get to experience it all. But then we get to a point where like, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to experience this. These are all choices. These are all lower vibrational expressions. I can actually transcend the self, and I can return to a wondrous state of consciousness where I recognize all of life is interconnected and actually one in source of being and importance. Then we can create a different world. So that was a big answer to your question, and I don't
Yeah,
even know if
that's
I
really
answered it.
good. That you mentioned like several important things. So I want to talk about the serpent
Okay.
because what you described about the flow of the sexual energy is the when you look at there are a lot of like references to this sort of thing,
Hmm.
and the I think the Divine Mother is often associated with this serpent because
Hmm.
Divine Mother is actually a serpent, but a lot of people think like, oh, the serpent can only be bad. This can
Mm.
only be like the temptation. But it is said that the serpent can rise, and this
Hmm.
is what um transmutation is essentially all about. Do you like how do you feel like the that plays into like all of this, I guess?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look, you don't have to look too far into the depth of Eastern knowledge and science, right? Like, and it's also it's in symbols all around us, like the caduceus that you see in the medical symbol, right? The wings, like
That
those two
is
snakes. That is, right? You could just say it's Kundalini energy, and we actually have two. I forget the name of them, Pingala and another one, which are
Pingala.
basically those energies. In which, sorry?
It's Pingala and is it Eng? I don't
Yeah, Ingla or
know.
something. And then there's the Shushumna or the central channel, which is our energetic center. I did a year-long live awake with Julian, I with Dr. Sue Morter, and that was helpful because her awakening showed her this larger 12 model, 12 chakra model that is really understandable. And it shows us how we compress from universal consciousness into these more tightly organized energetic centers, all the way from our most expansive self of universal consciousness into our creative intentionality, and then into our soulful in intention or purpose, or the destiny that we come here, our unique soul purpose, into our highest revelation of like, oh yeah, this is why I'm here. Like, I love to create. And then into this blessing center, into this aware and interconnected crown that we are meant to activate, into the insight, into the ability to literally manifest matter through sound and
Yes.
words and music, into that connection of heart, into that beautiful solar plexus, which is where our mind connects to
So
the deeper things.
this is also interesting to me that I do, before we continue, I also want to like bring it back to where people are at. And
Yeah.
like I also am curious, like how do you think there's the problem and there's a solution, I guess, like
Mhm.
how do you think people could what is getting in the way of people right now these days, like making the most out of this sexual energy that is ruling our life in every way, even if you
Yeah.
have to, you know, yeah, I think because it is, no
Yeah.
matter any conversation, this microcosm
Yeah.
parallels everything of the sexual interaction
It's
is,
a great question. My answer at this point is yes. I mean, clearly the darkness and diversions are very apparent. Christ is very clear in letter one that what we feed our mind and consciousness is very important. So, um, avoiding looking at the evils of the world and the perversions of the world, including the gratuitous sexual media that's out there. And many young men, including myself, have struggled with like looking at porn and feeling like that is somehow what sex is supposed to be. When if you really are with a woman or a partner and have true, authentic, deep love, it's like a whole other indescribable thing. So I think that a lot of that addiction, it stems from wanting to gratify. I mean, you talk about the dopamine addiction and stuff, and we like to look at things scientifically, but at the end of the day, I mean, you can look at things in a lot of ways, and I do believe there's a spiritual solution to everything. So really, I think we're dealing with two. They're not polarities to me. They're contractions and expansions. And the expansion is literally the to me the truth, because the expansion like connects, but we have the ability to experience the contraction and to pinch ourselves off from the truth, whatever that truth is that gives us life. Because I mean, it's kind of inarguable that life is and that we are life. And we don't have to go into some of the delusional spiritual thinking that I've experienced, but I would say the contraction is fear. And that to me, it's whether it's fear that erupts as anger, or fear that erupts as distraction, or fear that erupts as, or that hides, or it's all the things that put us into the sympathetic. The expansion, which to me is, it's the solution and also the source of being, is love. And not only is it love, it is the highest intelligence of life and creative power that creates everything. And so the answer is part of, I think what the answer is simple, is twofold. Is first off, there's really only two things that Christ tells us that we have to do. One is to heal our beliefs. So all of our erroneous beliefs, like I'm not good enough, I'm separate from everyone, I'll never make it, that person's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. All these beliefs that we get in the mind, they need to be healed. They need to be taken. And I think one way is to turn to love to heal those beliefs. And there's processes, and I could share with you some tools, but there's lots of ways of doing this, somatics and talk therapies and breath work and all these things. Like it's endless, right? And and the other thing is self-control. And I've been just recently I thought about self-control in a different way. I looked at it more expansively. Self-control is really about mastery, right? And mastery is really about creative expression. And the better you get at being a master of whatever element or domain you're working with, whether it's music or something, you get finer and finer in its subtleties and listening and experiencing. And that's attuning more and more to the ability to receive the love of something, right? It's really being in love. So those two elements of healing our fears and our beliefs and really rising in love, I feel like is it's the simplest way that I could boil down the path of the Christ way. And what I mean by that is the embodiment of our true and whole self in a way that really allows us to show up and really be that combination of our highest expression and experience of our father and our mother within us, and seeing all of life that way. And the last thing I'll say, Jack, is this acronym came to me years ago. I've shared it with many people in the show, but I feel like one of the ways of dealing with fear, because we can, there's lots of ways, and we've heard like fear, false evidence appearing real, or face everything and rise. And those can be very kind of like intellectual and like that yang energy, like face everything and rise. But I offer this. This came to me as an inspiration. I recently met someone who said she had the same inspiration, which is interesting to me, but it's feel everything and remember. And so what you are doing as a community a builder in being vulnerable and sharing, your posts about, sexual energy, about your real authentic feelings, not knowing what you're doing, you're feeling it. And you're also remembering that you're not alone. And I feel like that is such a beautiful path to awakening, because it's not awakening just as yourself, by yourself. It's awakening and sparking and giving that inspiration to others.
Yeah. So I think like with the other thing about the sexual energy too is that I haven't I've been single. So I'm working with this energy through my own breathing. And it's like I don't know how to um I was curious if you like how you approached relationships for yourself. Like, did you start dating when you were did you meet any like when you were like, because like I'm in my 20s, so it's
Hmm.
like and like I have this part of me that's like, no, I should like wait until I'm older because I want like a real long-term sacred union. And
Hmm.
then on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know, like maybe I can maybe I know a woman. Like I don't know. Like like I'm just curious
Hmm.
like if you had
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's interesting you asked me that. I probably am a little bit out of the box compared to a lot of men. To me, I really need to love someone to engage in sex with them. And
Yeah.
I um I just never I always got along well with women, and I liked women, and I also had this mad crush on this girl when I was in high school. And it's funny because her name actually was a clue, because Julia was her name, and then I shouldn't say ended up I I met in a beautiful, divinely synchronistic way Julia, who now we are growing a family with. I do believe that there are maybe not one soulmate that we can have that kind of depth with, that there are probably maybe 1,000 or more on the planet. I don't think there's this like necessarily one. I do think it's good to have so my first experience, actually, my friend who I shared a log with, I ended up dating, and she literally pressured me into because she wanted to have sex. And to me it was difficult because it was like this sacred thing I knew. And yeah, I've had my experiences with just being with certain women, and
So you did like meet women in your 20s because like I've
yeah,
literally been like I don't know if I should even like meet women. Like I've done it a little bit, but I
yeah,
don't try to like go further or anything like
yeah. Well, honestly, man, I love talking with women, because women are very different than
yeah.
men. And I would say that, I feel like what I would say to you is that the most important relationship that we cultivate is with our creator. And that is the origin of all energy and sexuality. And when that can be the most important relationship, then it shows up in all of our other relationships, because that same beingness exists in the other. So when you can have that level of intimacy with yourself, I think it can show up in other intimate relationships with others, and it doesn't need to be sexual. You can have a deep, deep friendship with someone of the same sex, of another sex. It doesn't really matter. And then I think there is true sacredness to sexuality, and especially what I love about the letters, actually, he talks explicitly about sexuality quite a bit. And he talks about how important it is to be in a state of unconditional love when you're having intercourse because consciousness is exchanged. And I can tell you from some painful experiences that I've had that this is very true. And to be very selective, if I can give you any kind of guidance, in some situations, I haven't been as discerning, and it has led to a lot of pain. So I would encourage you, because then you have to go through a cleansing process, right? This is why warriors, when they came back from battle and stuff, they would go into sweat lodges to cleanse themselves so they could be present in community in a whole and loving and kind way. And so, man, I would say like honor yourself. If you can learn how to cultivate this energy, whether it's through Taoism, or yoga, or other things, you are going to raise your consciousness in a way that allows you to show up more authentically in those deep relationships. And when you do, if you do decide to have children with a woman, you will have such a better rootedness in yourself that you would, and the children will just be so much more harmoniously and consciously attuned because you have done so much of that inner work. So that's what I would suggest, and be a magnet. I wouldn't say there's so many guys out there chasing and game culture and all this stuff is like the right woman will find you based on who you are. And so if you can really become who you really are more and more, you're going to have a fantastic relationship with someone. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about this lately because I've just been like kind of laid back with it, and
Yeah.
I think I really like hearing how other men have experienced like the retention transmutation experience, and like how that affected their relationships and the work that they do. Um and so I've made some videos to myself where I've like addressed myself in the future. And 2 days ago, um sorry, you
Sorry.
good?
Yeah, I had to send a text because I have a meeting coming up and I don't want to end it. So
Oh, I
pardon
have
me.
not even looked at the time. Oh
It's like
sh
almost 30 after. So
okay,
sorry,
okay, yeah.
can you repeat
Time
what you were
time is
saying?
flying by. I've made these videos to myself, and 3 years ago, exactly 3 years ago, I made a video, but it was not to myself. It was to that girl that I was obsessed with in high school.
Mm,
And I was like, and then I was like, okay, I just need to send this to her like 3 years in the future, and she can see like that I've made this. But I didn't. I watched the video this week because it's literally been 3 years since I addressed her in this video, and like,
okay.
it's a silly ass video. I don't even like it, and I haven't even been thinking about the girl that much.
There you go.
So,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that's the evolution. So you can do that because you're such an introspective man. You can do a lot of that transmutation yourself and prepare yourself for knowing that there is that that resonance in a divine feminine energy that you will find someday you'll attract it. And some men just choose to date a bunch of women and find like what their likes and dislikes are. Like I think staying true to ourselves is the most important thing in this time because there's so many life coaches and gurus and this and that and there's so many divergent voices that can lead to confusion. I think when you talk about going into stillness and listening within and honoring that, Jack, is honestly is the most profound path. And I think it's the fastest path. Because the other thing about sexual energy too is it's one of the fastest paths to awakening and enlightenment when you do it properly with a partner. So, um, there's a lot of beauty in your level of discernment at such a prime age where there is a more heightened sexual energy, if you can put that sexual energy into creative expression of who you are and cultivate it and, you know, create the life that you're yearning for, I mean, that's what I would suggest, like, yeah, being true to yourself. And it's funny because, yeah, I mean, like sometimes we think 3 years ago, you were in a totally different state of your development, in a totally different phase of your social life. And so, of course, you matured so much since then. And, so has that girl. And maybe she went in a direction that would not even be appealing to you anymore,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I have a lot to say about that, but how are we doing on time?
Well, I probably have another 5 minutes or so, and then can wrap up because I do have another call with to reach out. So sorry for the distraction there.
Okay. Okay.
I learned from Brandon that the opposite of distraction is traction. So yeah, and I'd love to continue this conversation with you forward too. Like you are a member in Later Vision Jack, and what I'm going to be doing more is I'm calling them infinite spaces where we have other inspiring people just offering their voices inside Lighter community as a way of soulful promotion. So if you want to talk about, your community or the focus creators, like, there's opportunities to continue this
Mm,
experience. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, like my community, like it when I wanted to attract more members. I had like all these really great posts at the end of last year that I was like super excited to share. And I was like, okay, before I share these, like, let me just pause for a bit because I didn't want to do it like late at night or something. And then I was like, okay, let me just focus on attracting members. So I held them in a safe in my notes. I didn't share any of the posts. And I have like this large ass document, like letters. It's like 33 letters. And I was like, let me focus on attracting people to the community. So I just went into like other big ass communities and started attracting people. I did this for 2 months. And when I came back to Confident Introverts, I was like, man, I don't, do I post? No, I don't post these now. Like, I don't know what to do with these now at all. I don't even know what this community is even about. I don't even
Hmm.
know what's going on. And it's like, do I just reignite the Confident Introverts thing? And I was like, asking people, because like I want to build it with people. And at the same time, I had also partnered up with Tibor. So I was like, I decided to change it to just like classical music community because why
Hmm.
not? Like I like classical music,
Yeah.
but then doing that felt too specific and I was like I want to have more openness and so I was like okay, people were like continuing to give me feedback and they were like Jack, you could just share stuff. And I was like, well, it sounds self-centered because I want it to be like a place for people, not just me to serve them. But I was like, okay, fine, like that might be fun. I can just have a place to share things. So I called it Jack's Community.
That's great.
But then it was like then even if I had stuff to share, it felt like it was something like I had to post. And it's like I don't want to make a community, even if it's for like all this different fun random activity stuff, like I
Mhm.
don't want to feel like it's something like I have to go and do. And so now I'm at a point where I'm like considering just like ending the community.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, and I have not shared this publicly at all, but like what I might do is there's all these like alchemy and spiritual communities. It really comes down to the host. I think this is great. Like you are a phenomenal host. Like you're really
Thanks, man.
intentional about
Appreciate
the
that.
work you do. You're incredibly caring and sincere, and you put like immense internal and physical effort on a whole new level that I don't think I've ever seen on anybody on school. It's incredible. And
Thanks, man.
that's
Appreciate the
powerful.
compliment.
Like no one is, working with their family and like their internal connection like as much to that high of a level. So the thing that I'm seeing with like these alchemy spiritual communities, even if they're like about semen retention, it's just um it's just a little off. Like there's not a way for someone
Hmm.
to understand how they can work with this energy. And it's also, it can feel like a very taboo subject, yet
Hmm.
at the same time, it can really be ruling like all conversations. A fear of awkward silence, a fear of rejection, a fear of like over or just like overthinking conversation. I think all of this is a completely sexual matter that parallels the masculine and feminine inter like dynamic. And but like there's never a community just about that.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking of like making like a sexual transmutation community where those teachings are like specifically talked about.
Bro,
And
if you just called your community sex, you know how popular that'd be? Just
yeah,
like sex, let's talk.
yeah, I know, right? But like
Because
it's
you're an
just
explorer,
so
man. Like the beautiful thing about you is you have this innocence And like just wanting to talk about it, I feel like is super healthy. Yeah, and this is a big problem in our society because there's so much sexual suppression. It comes from all kinds of lenses. And now there's a lot of weird sexual perversions that are being exposed that have been deeply wounding to our children and to causing all kinds of things. It's all coming to light now. And I didn't realize how pervasive it was in our society. I think you bringing this to a conversation and just keeping even that general, where you don't need to figure it out and you don't need to be teaching about semen retention. Because here's the thing, there's a lot of people trying to awaken by forcing it, killing the ego, pumping the things up, changing the DNA. Like, first of all, look, we didn't even create our body. We didn't create our intelligence. We are so arrogant sometimes as a species. Turning to love itself, whatever you want to call it, creator, great mystery, Yahweh, Allah, like it does not matter. It is the reality behind all this. And it's from the outside in too. And I think that connecting to the greatest expanse of ourselves and rooting in, not from the root up, like we have to force this. A plant does not force itself to grow. It is drawn to the sun. And the sun is a reflection of unlimited energy of giving, pouring love onto all worlds. And we see innumerable stars that are doing this all the time. So honestly, man, like I'm not joking. I think if you were changing the name of the community sex, everyone, would have a different connection to that, just like we all have a different connection to love. And like at the end of the day, Lightheart Vision is an acronym for love. Is an acronym for live, is an acronym for live, is an acronym for love. It's up to people. Like it's all the same thing. Sex is love, just like money is love too, right? If you call the community money, like people have all kinds of beliefs about money, just like people have all kinds of beliefs about sex and stuff. I don't know. It's just something to consider, but I feel like your curiosity is the community. And the curiosity combined with the synthesis of your desire to build a community collaboratively is is your unique essence that you live in. If sex is what you're interested in because this is the phase you're in life, who knows? Maybe it'll become something like babies down the road, Jack. You know?
I feel, yeah, I just like, I feel so like split in in this sort of subject matter because I think it's like, I don't feel like I constantly feel this feeling that I should like wait longer and longer. So, like, I haven't been in any relationships because I feel like it's just something I need to like keep waiting.
Well, and if that's what you really feel, then maybe
But
that's it.
it's like an uncomfortable feeling. Like it's like I don't know. It's a lot of guilt, I think, is like
Yeah.
what I ultimately feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage you to love that guilt. Love the one who feels guilty, you know? Make it as simple as that. Just go for a walk with that guilt and, make friends with the guilt. And maybe it'll transmute into a gift that you didn't realize has always been with you. I mean, that guilt has been keeping you safe in some ways and also has been preparing you for something greater. And then when it comes time to meet the one or the several that you are meant to be have experiences with, in doing that work, you will be able to hold space for people in a whole new way. You will be able to love their guilt, the one that is guilty, because so many struggle people. Because guilt is just the other side of the coin of judgment. Like that's all guilt is, right? Because you can't be guilty if there is no one judging you. No, if there's nothing to judge
Yeah.
and no one judging you, guilt can't exist. So that's what I would encourage, Jack. I am gonna ask you a couple questions here because I do need to wrap things up. First off, how can people connect with you? What's the best way of connecting with Jack and what you're doing?
Yeah. Amazing. I would definitely say I like to keep it simple. This is not the part where I plug my Instagram, my link. Like, no, like there are two ways to connect with me, and it is either through school or it is through YouTube.
Cool.
So you can search my name, Jack Shiller. You will probably see my 60K channel, but don't follow that. It's an illusion. It's part of the follow the Jack Shiller YouTube channel. There's a picture of me with a yellow background. I'm smiling. I have glasses on. When you open up my channel, you'll see a bunch of videos
Okay.
recently, and that has 200 subscribers because it's been a more of a recent development. So that is my YouTube, and then join Focused Creators because we host calls. We actually have a call coming up in about an hour.
Okay.
And we love to, yeah, share community calls, like even have people speak. I do a presentation, so it's really fun.
That's awesome, man. That's
Creators on.
awesome. Cool. And I will end with the last question I always love asking our inspired guests. If you had a megaphone and you could talk to everyone around the world and everyone could hear you, what would you share?
Dang.
I gave you a heads up too.
I guess really the only thing I can think of right now is wake up and check if you're dreaming.
Hmm. Ah, I love that, man. Wake up and check if you're
Jump.
dreaming.
Try jumping. And if you float, you're dreaming. And then you should try and see if there's a master you can talk to, or your mother. Remember your mother. That's what I would say. Remember your
Remember
mother.
your mother. Yeah. I think it's been a beautiful summary of the divergence that you are still synthesizing in your own waking experience, Jack. So I really appreciate you being on the show, man. Do you have anything else you'd like to share before I invite Luciana to come and say thanks for watching, everyone?
No, I appreciate it. And of course, with all of this, like I'm a work in progress. I have no
We
idea
all
what's
are, bro.
I don't understand anything. So I'm here with you.
Love it, man. I love the humility. It's important. All right. Well, real pleasure having you on the show, man. I'm looking forward to seeing who you become and who you choose to become. So, with that, I'm going to invite Luciana to say thanks for watching, and to all of our listeners out there, blessings, highest wishes, and thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side, whatever that means. Okay. Blessings.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Button.
You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.